All right, pumped up. We are episode number 20.
Big deal.
There's
a lot of pressure.
There's a lot of pressure. This is Great Northern Discussions. Number 20. Nobody makes it here. No one makes it to 20, so I've heard. So, I don't know. Had to bring in a heavy hitter with quite the story to tell, and we do have that. I'm trying to keep it light off the start because we're going down a tough journey, I think, here for everyone. But I am excited for the next guest. We have Sloane Masikewich.
You got it.
Nailed it.
Nailed that last name. It's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one, yeah, just the spelling.
Yes.
So, Claire, you are in marketing and business development over at GeoVera.
That's right. Yeah, Canada's largest surveying and geomatics firm. Just putting a plug in for them there.
Yeah, you got to get your plugs in always.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
That's how it works.
Exactly.
Well, and we're, of course, not here to plug them, but you do have a day job, and we got to mention that. Mm-hmm. So, Claire, your story... we're going to start basically from the very beginning, but your daughter, Sloane, was diagnosed with...
Stage 4 neuroblastoma, just coming up on a year ago. So
Okay, so just over a year ago, and she is, as we were discussing earlier, 6.5, same age as my daughter. So they could be budsies.
They could be, absolutely. She's a firecracker. She's a good kid, and certainly a shock. When we received that news, for sure.
No question. No question. Okay, well, let's start at the beginning.
Sure.
Start with the family, yourself and Kurt.
Yes.
That's first. Where did you and Kurt meet?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're going way back.
We're going to go there, and then we'll skip over all the fun stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Kurt and I, we're not high school sweethearts. We went to the same high school.
Yeah.
But he'd tell you that he didn't like me and I didn't like him, and, classic kind of story.
Yeah.
And we had friends in the same kind of group, met and started dating kind of right after high school. And so we've been married now for 15 years. We just celebrated our 15-year wedding anniversary in January.
Congrats. Here,
Yes.
let's have a cheers.
Oh, yeah, cheers.
Cheers the beers, because we're giving a plug out to Luminosity, right?
No, we're giving a
isn't
plug out to Cabin.
Cabin.
Cabin. Cheers to Cabin.
I can edit that out.
It's the name. It's okay.
It is the name.
It's the name. Yeah, so we've been married for 15 years. We can get into when we celebrated our anniversary. Sloane was in the hospital in high-dose chemo, so that was fun. We'll get into that later. And we married and had kids 7 years later. So we had our first daughter, Indy. So Indy's now 8.5.
8.5.
And fantastic big sister. She's inspiring, and she's been fantastic this whole way through. So we had her, and then less than 3 weeks shy of 2 years later, we had Sloane. And we didn't know what we were having. We had a surprise for both. And
cool.
It was a great surprise. She comes out and looking for all the parts. It's another girl. And such a wonderful thing. Kurt is a fantastic dad of daughters. He's a sensitive guy. So
that's good.
Yeah, he's been fantastic with the two of them. So they're great kids. The two of them get along so well. And they rarely fight. I feel like I should knock on wood.
Yeah, well, knock on a table is wood.
Exactly.
That's what it's there for. Well, girls are the best, of course. We're biased, but especially the little girls. They're sweethearts and cuddly and good listeners and silly. And
they are. But you know what? She's different in that she is not your typical girly girl. And we always, it's funny, when we're at the hospital, they have like the treasure box, and it's like, oh, what do you want? The unicorns and the princesses. And she's like, where are the Hot Wheels? Can I get a dinosaur? How about the animals?
Really?
So that is more her jam. So she's different, and her sister's very different than that. So night and day.
Okay, well, that can be their nicknames, night and day.
Exactly. Hey, I like that. That's a good one. Peanut butter jelly, night and day, something, right? It's good.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're living the seemingly normal family life of 4. Kurt's surrounded by estrogen and screaming and silliness. And so let's get right into it. Were there some signs or symptoms that led to May 26th being the big day?
Yeah. Yes and no. So she was a really healthy kid otherwise, which is always it's hard when I go to doctor's appointments even now, and they ask, like, well, was she a healthy kid otherwise? Yeah, she was a really healthy kid. You know, she was born 2 days early, no issues with the birth. I always explain that, you know, when you have your baby is born, and you quickly do the check for the 10 fingers and the 10 toes.
Sure.
And you're like, okay, good. And then you get the check and everything's good and you go along and you kind of feel like you're out of the woods. And you're like, oh, this is great. I have a healthy baby.
Yeah, we're good.
First kind of year goes by, everything's good. They have their checks and you just think we're good. And then you picture this long, beautiful life with your child, as we all should. But sadly, that didn't happen for us. So going back to May Long weekend. So May Long weekend last year, we always go to Sylvan Lake every long weekend. My parents and my in-laws have a place there. So we were at Sylvan Lake. And Sloane was complaining of a lot of like groin kind of pelvic pain. And I just chalked it up to growing pains because I was like, you know, that's this kind of age. She's growing. Her legs are growing. My oldest experienced growing pains. So that's where my mind went.
Yep.
And, but she was definitely more tired that weekend. It's like she was napping and she was 5 and
Not
not herself. But then we just kind of let it go. And then Monday when we got home from the long weekend, she got a fever. And I thought, oh, okay, it was the flu. So I was thinking flu, fever, aches, flu. So we kept her home from school for basically that entire week because we just couldn't get on top of this fever, you know, doing the Advil and the Tylenol and
what
all
was
that.
her, what was it at? Like,
it
was like 104 or something? Or?
Yeah. Well, I know it now,
high.
like 38.
Yeah,
like
38. Yeah, that's high.
8 or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So just kind of battling this fever all week. And then what started to, I guess, be a little bit different out of the norm for her was that she was struggling to go up the stairs. Like she would have to hold onto the banister to walk up the stairs because her legs were hurting so bad. So now it's not just the pelvic pain, it's moved into her kind of femur, her knees, stopped right around the knees. So it's right around there. And even getting into the car, she had to like hold on to like the car to really pull herself in. So that was all strange, some red flags. But if I'm being honest, I still didn't have that mother's intuition. It was weird. I was just like, it's fine. It's the flu. It was my mom and my husband, Kurt, who were like, I don't know, this just doesn't seem right.
Normal.
Not normal. Maybe we should call 811. So on the Friday that week, I sent her to school. I was like, she's good. She doesn't have a fever anymore. At that point, she didn't have a fever.
No fever, got some pains, hopefully growing.
Exactly. She's good. So she went to school. And then my mom would, picked her up from school that day because I was working from home, brought her home. My mom brought her home and she's like, she just doesn't seem right. She's off. Something's not right. So,
and as parents, you do know when they're off.
Something's just not right.
Something off.
Yeah. We had that feeling, but, so we called 811, good old Health Link.
Yep.
To explain what was going on. And actually the nurse put me through right away to a physician, or I think they called me back. It was like, they'll call you back in 10 minutes. So a physician called, I explained what was going on. And he said, yeah, an unexplained fever with no other symptoms, like no cold, no flu symptoms lasting all week, which is not normal for her. She's not a fever kid. And very specific bilateral leg pain. He's like, is cause for alarm. So he said, I do recommend you go to the children's hospital. Like, it's not an emergency right now, but in the next 24 hours.
Yep.
So this was the Friday, May 26th. Around 6 p.m. I'm like, well, we're not going to wait till tomorrow. Like, why wait? We know what it's like to go to Emerge. Yeah. Let's go. Let's just get it over and done with. So I packed my stuff up, just kind of thinking we're going for the evening and some snacks and the iPad, and we headed off to the children's. And I remember where I was driving along John Laurie going down the hill, and Sloane was in such good spirits. She was singing along, doing her thing. And I said to her, and I'll never forget this, are you really in pain? Are you really in pain? Because I don't want to go to the emergency room and sit there for 5 hours for nothing. Like, are you pulling my leg here?
You're beating yourself up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And looking back, I'm like, oh my goodness, thank goodness we went. And she was like, no, Mom, I'm in pain. So along we went. So we got to the Emerge. And yeah, of course it's busy. But yes, we went to triage and they did the usual checks and asked the questions. And then we waited in the waiting room for a few hours. And then we got back and waited another few hours to see a doctor. But I do appreciate, and I still need to write a letter to AHS to thank the emergency room doctor for taking it so seriously, because she did. And she
She was kind of on a high alert.
Yeah, she was too.
And,
you know, she was feeling like Sloane's legs and doing kind of the push-pull test to see kind of the strength and the pain. And she was obviously in pain. So she ordered blood work, and I can't remember. It's funny, this weekend my husband and I were kind of going through all of our text messages to see the order of events of what happened and what our conversations were like that night. Therapeutic, I think, to do that. I think we needed that coming up on this year of diagnosis. And she ordered blood work, and then said they were doing some more blood work, but that wasn't really cause for concern. In the moment, I was like, oh, maybe she has sepsis, which still sucks. Like, if you have a blood infection, like, that's what I was thinking, or meningitis, which also sucks. But then at one point she came in, and now I think it's like 1 or 2 in the morning. Sloane's sleeping. I'm not really sleeping. Sloane's trying to sleep. And the wonderful doctor from Emerge pulled me out and like took me around a corner and like sat me on a couch. And right in that moment, like, I don't, even still to this day, like, looking back, I wouldn't have known what she was getting at. Like, she didn't really allude to anything, but she knew well enough to take me out and have a conversation about her blood. So her blood.
And Kurt is obviously at home.
He's at home with Indy. Yeah. So we were kind of texting. I think at 1:30 in the morning, I was like, go to sleep. I'll let you know what comes out of this.
I got it.
Yeah. And I'll text you later.
Yep.
So yeah, he's home. So she just had mentioned that Sloane's hemoglobin and platelet levels are really low. And now I know what that means. But in that moment, I wouldn't.
I don't. Yeah.
No. So I was like, oh, okay, all right. So she's like, so we're referring her to hematologist. And so we are going to admit you to Unit 2. Unit 2 is just a generic kind of unit. So it's like, oh, okay. Again, still at this point, I had no idea what that meant. So I think I texted Kurt at 5:30 in the morning. He was up and just let him know we were being admitted. And but I just said, I'm going to wait to call my mom for a little bit till we're in a room. She can come with Indy, and then you can come.
Was he getting concerned at this point? You were there that long?
I think so. Like, I think he was. But then we still, like, again, we were both like, I don't know what this means. And I don't think he even I asked him this weekend. I was like, did you Google what it meant to have like low hemoglobin and platelets? He's like, no. I'm like, that's probably good. Yeah. Which is surprising because we all go to Dr. Google.
Oh yeah, every time, right down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yes. So that put us to Unit 2. And then let me know if you want me to continue. Because it continues just forever. But
yeah. Well, I know. I mean, obviously this is one insane whirlwind for you, but I really want to understand. Like, so they send you to Unit 2. Yeah. At what point are they delivering the?
Right around kind of the next day. So, not a specific diagnosis, but the next, I guess, morning when Kurt and Indy showed up and we were at Unit 2, one of the doctors came in, excuse me, and he, it's funny, the questions he asked us, again, I didn't clue in. At that point, Kurt knew something was serious because he asked us casually, like we were just having a conversation, remind me what you do for work, and do you guys have good benefits, and do you have family in town? And so those questions, we were like, okay, something's up. So he was explaining the blood work and what he was seeing, and I heard little, and he was very good because both the girls were in the room, so he was very careful with his words, but I knew what he was getting at because he used the words malignant. And I heard malignant multiple times.
Thinking tumor.
Yeah. And so then at one point I was like, do you mind if we just go out in the hall? So went out in the hall. Kurt and I went out, and I said, I just wanted to confirm that you're talking about cancer. And he's like, yes. So at that point, we didn't know what type. He was thinking leukemia, but then there was tests that were done actually quite quickly the next day on the Sunday that normally done on a weekend, but thank goodness they did them on the weekend. And the results came back negative from that. So it wasn't leukemia. And then we went down the whole, like, okay, X-ray, ultrasound, CT, MRI.
They're trying to hone in on exactly
what's going on. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And how was, I would imagine Sloane's just being a kid through all this.
Yeah. Like she's
no
clue. So that was the Saturday that we kind of started hearing cancer. I think it was the Monday where we got more of a definite diagnosis with stage 4 neuroblastoma, just based on where they saw the tumor. So I guess we can go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
She had a tumor on her right adrenal gland, and that's pretty indicative of neuroblastoma. Like that's a kind of a marker of neuroblastoma would be a tumor on the adrenal gland. And I guess to back it up further, so neuroblastoma is the cancer of immature nerve cells.
Nerve cells, yeah.
So Sloane was actually quite old to be diagnosed with neuroblastoma.
So that makes it high risk.
High risk, yeah. A lot of times they catch this more around kind of 12 to 18 months because, crazy enough, neuroblastoma develops in utero. So Sloane had these neuroblastoma cancerous cells for the last
in her
5 years,
5 years
hanging out. And it wasn't until, I guess to back it up a little bit further too, I noticed in March of last year, she had sweaty palms. And I was like, this is weird for a 5-year-old, to have sweaty hands. Like, I understand as you're going through puberty and it is what it is. Some people have sweaty hands. I went to my family doctor and she was like, oh, this is kind of weird. She's like, it probably is just her and who she is, but let's do blood work to be safe. So I'm very thankful for our family doctor for that. Went, did blood work, and it all came back normal. Like hemoglobin, platelets, all that stuff was normal in March.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it was normal in March. But then it wasn't at the end of May.
2 months later.
Basically, yeah. So what I think, if I'm using my detective skills, the sweaty palms were caused by the tumor that was growing on her adrenal gland. Because that's your fight or flight response. Your sweat response comes from your adrenal. So I think it was growing at that point. That was what was causing the sweaty hands. She actually did have some night sweats too, but we didn't think anything of that. But that was another sign now looking back that she was a sweaty kid at night. But the reason why it didn't show up in her blood work is because it hadn't hit her bone marrow yet. So then in May, we did blood work. It's all wonky. And kind of fast forward to after we did all these tests, we saw this on the adrenal gland. Then they ordered something that was called an MIBG scan. So it's similar to a PET scan for adults, but MIBG is specific to neuroblastoma. Okay. So basically, they inject this dye that comes from the U.S., and you should see nothing. Like it should be a black screen. Sloane was lit up everywhere. Her skull, her sternum, her arms, her pelvis, her legs, her knees, like everything was just lit up. Yep. So that showed that this neuroblastoma had spread into her bone marrow. And we did a bone marrow biopsy and it was positive too.
Positive.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So after, it's just such a gut punch. And we were talking earlier too, like especially, like pre-children. Yeah. I'd like to think of myself as a bit of a sensitive guy. Like I cared for children. Yeah. But I was selfish, of course. But I really didn't realize, of course, until you have children. Then that is your world. I have one daughter. She is, of course, my world. And your 2 daughters are your world. So they're telling you high risk, stage 4. Yeah. So you're going down the Google machine hard after this.
Goodness, hard, which is not a good place to go. And, when you hear stage 4, that's scary.
Yeah, that's scary enough.
You hear cancer, that's scary. I didn't realize there were so many different types of childhood cancers. Like I just heard cancer and I was like, okay, it's cancer. Yeah. I remember actually saying when we met with the primary oncologist for our first meeting to kind of map out what this treatment plan looked like, before she laid this out, I asked her, I said, is this a go home and enjoy your life conversation? I didn't know.
No, of course. Right? That's a valid question.
And she's like, oh, no, of course not. And now knowing what I know, that's rarely the conversation with kids. Like they're going to try and fight whatever they can really aggressively. Yeah. So yeah, it was a rabbit hole that we went down, and thankfully Google hasn't really caught up with the true, outcomes for kids with neuroblastoma, which is good. But if I'm being honest, now, like, I feel like over the last year, I hate to say it, but I feel like I've lost a little bit of positivity because of all of the stuff that I hear and what I learn about this world, and that the prognosis that they deliver kind of feels like bullshit.
No, fair enough. We're gonna go there. We're gonna go there. I want to get through, I think, Sloane's treatments. We don't have to go through step by step, but what was the plan that they mapped out for you?
Yeah, so the plan they mapped out was initially kind of looked like a 12-month plan.
12 months,
and now it's looking more, it's going to be more about 18 months. I'm not sure why they mapped out 12 because there hasn't been a whole lot of holdups. Like you'd think like that would be caused by all sorts of things, but she's been fairly on track. So we'll just call it 18 months.
Yep.
So for neuroblastoma, it is, not that any cancer isn't aggressive, but it is a very aggressive cancer. So they go at it with basically every modality. So I feel like she's been through every single thing that you can do for cancer treatment.
Seems like, yeah, from what I was reading of your story, she's had everything.
Yeah, everything. So started with, and I won't get into the details, but started with 5 rounds of induction chemo. So I call that the easy stuff because it's easy. Like she was outpatient for a couple, but then she was admitted for a couple rounds. So that kind of took us into September. They also did a stem cell extraction, aspiration in July to take hers out.
Where do they take the?
She has a central line. She has a central line that was surgically put in that first week that she was diagnosed. It's a double lumen. It's like a thick one. They do a big one because they knew that they have to do a stem cell transplant too later.
Right.
So, so she did the induction chemo, and then she had surgery to remove the primary mass on her right adrenal gland with her right adrenal. So now she only has one adrenal gland, which is fine. You can live with one.
Well, I'll stop you right there.
Yeah.
Let's ask a simple anatomy question that I have no idea where the adrenal gland is.
By your kidneys.
By your kidneys.
So it is very close to your kidney. And so for her being on the right-hand side, it was also close to the liver. So that's important as we get into another conversation of what she also had for treatment. So the easy chemo surgery to remove her right adrenal gland. And then she went into high-dose chemo. And high-dose chemo is a bitch, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It was one of the most awful things to see her go through.
How much? Yeah. How many?
So 2 rounds
doses?
of high-dose chemo and 2 stem cell transplants with a bit of a break in between. So what it looks like is the first round, like they basically go at it. We were in for 4 weeks, but it's not chemo the entire time. The chemo is only about 5 or 6 days.
Yep.
And then she has a couple rest days, and then they do her stem cell transplant. And then the reason why they're in for so long is because they have to watch to have all their counts go up. So it just basically wipes out your entire system. So all of your counts drop, white blood cell, something called neutrophils. So your absolute neutrophil count is also really important when we're talking about cancer, and it just basically wipes everything out. And that's why they have to do the stem cell recovery to get basically putting like baby stem cells back in to create new bone marrow.
Right.
Yeah. And that first round, we were admitted at the end of October, so she was there for Halloween. And the first, one of the chemos that she had during that time called topotecan. I'm going to screw up that one. Anyways, I'm not a nurse, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It was so toxic that we had to give her a bath every 6 hours and change her linens every 6 hours.
Oh, are you kidding?
It seeps out through her skin. Oh. We had to wear gloves to give her a bath. And if I'm being honest, I forgot them multiple times, but I didn't care because I was like, if we're pumping this into my daughter, I honestly don't care.
And you don't want me to touch this.
I don't care. Yeah. Doesn't even faze me.
No.
So, because it can cause like burns on their skins. And then after, and she couldn't have any of her personal belongings. Like none of her toys could be with her during that time.
Really? What?
Because it's so reason? Toxic. Like it's
so
just
toxic.
like
it gets into everything.
Into everything. Like basically like throw away, not everything she touches.
It's like in a prison kind of.
Yeah. So that was intense. And the worst part about that wasn't that piece. Believe it or not, it was after. So after she was done her chemo, through high dose chemo, kids get something, or they can get something called mucositis. And the best way to describe it is essentially like if you had really bad cold sores from like mouth to rectum, all the way through.
Okay, gotcha.
And so there was about a week period where she couldn't talk and she couldn't swallow. Like she just kept spitting into a little like a bucket every 5 minutes. And she couldn't talk.
How long? You said 2 weeks she was like that?
She was in for 4 weeks.
In for 4 weeks.
And then poor girl, she came home for 5 days, but then she ended up with another infection. So we were in for another 2 weeks. So I call that first round like 6 weeks of just being
6 weeks of hell.
And not being like, so my husband and I would switch off every 2 days. Like that's how we would work it. Like we'd go visit her, but we'd sleep there for 2 nights and then go home and switch off so we could be home with Indy as well.
Well, I was going to ask you here, why don't you can take a sip of your beer at least, let you catch your breath because it's a lot to take in. I was going to ask that important question only for some, but how were you and Kurt's work life? You need to work and run the family and both your works, I would assume, were all good with this and on board, but
definitely. Yeah. I'm lucky to, I'm off work right now. Like I'm there kind of helping to, if there's questions and they come to me, but otherwise my employer has been very supportive with me being off.
Yeah.
Because there's no way a family could manage through this. And
how are they going to do it? That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
And emotionally too, like mentally, I'm just like, how am I supposed to work and focus? And I have a team, like I have a team of 6-7 people on my team, and I'm supposed to be making big decisions. Like mentally, I am not there.
No.
But then my husband, Kurt, he's continued to work, but his employer has been very flexible during that time, which is fantastic. So he's lucky to have them for sure.
Yeah, because I don't imagine a lot of people would not have that luxury.
No, there's a lot of families who are definitely worse off than us, and there are, it's a struggle for families for
Grateful
sure.
for that portion, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, let's
So high dose chemo, did that twice.
Awful.
That sucks. And I think the other thing too that people don't realize about, especially oncology kids, when they're in the hospital, they are isolated to their room. Like we can't even leave. It's like, we can go wander the cafeteria. You can take her outside. Nope.
You can't do anything.
She cannot leave her room.
But how about visiting?
Visitors can come and go.
You can come and go.
Yeah.
Do you got to be all hazmated up and stuff?
No.
Okay.
Like we're good. Like the nurses, if she's on isolation, the nurses are all hazmated up, and they are. Well, to put some of these crazy chemos in her, you should see like the garb that they're wearing because it's so toxic.
Well, I seen a bit of it with when my father passed in 2018. There was not to compare. There was some kind of a hospital super bug that went around, and just the garb that these people were wearing, it was like out of ET, or like it was crazy.
Crazy. So high dose chemo, got through that, and then we went back. So I guess to back up a little bit, they did a CT scan after her first surgery and realized that there was a residual mass that had been left behind.
This was like behind her kidney, I was reading.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it wasn't seen. And obviously when they're going in to do the surgery to remove the adrenal gland, they're not going to explore. Like it's not their job to be like, let's move all the things and look around. Like, let's not do that. So we were hoping that it would have shrunk or disappeared completely with high dose chemo number 2, and it didn't at all. So that sucked. And we were like, we just need to get that out of there. Like that was my mind before we even went into high dose chemo, was like, we are going to do surgery and we are going to remove that.
Now you're like, whatever, just
let's
take it out.
Get it out.
Yeah.
So went back in, that was in February 22nd, did surgery to remove that last little bit. And then less than 2 weeks later that we were on an airplane to go to Florida, Jacksonville, not for vacation, I wish, for proton radiation, because proton is not available here in Canada. Although when we were there, we saw a press release that Edmonton's getting a proton clinic.
They are getting it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
crazy.
so it won't be open until 2027, and there's no way they're going to be able to serve all of the Canadians. But hey, good. If there's going to be one good thing in Edmonton, sure, give them proton.
Sure, give them something.
Give them something.
Well, and the others are doing okay.
I guess so. I'm cheering for the Canucks.
Are you? Oh, well, good series. No,
it's true.
I mean, yeah. I was going to ask then so was that part of the plan to send her to Florida?
No, it wasn't. We met with the radiologist. So, fun fact, kids don't do their radiation at the Children's Hospital. They go to the Tom Baker. Currently Tom Baker. So we met with the radiologist there, and Kurt and I knew there were some families who had gone to Jacksonville for proton, and we suggested it. Not because we wanted a vacation, but because we felt like it was the best possible treatment for her. And the reason being is that traditional radiation, even though it is more targeted than chemo, it still can seep out to surrounding organs.
Okay.
And given the fact that Sloane had already been through so much with high dose chemo, this high dose chemo just can do a number on your organs.
How was she? Yeah, how was she after that?
She was good. She was good. Like that's the thing.
She's a kid.
She's a kid, and she just bounced right back. And
of course
she did. Right?
They're so resilient.
They are. But for us, it was more if we can mitigate the damage to her kidney and her liver, like that's huge because who knows what's going on with her other kidney. Like in a few years' time, her other kidney could fail because of all of this. So we felt like the most targeted approach for this radiation would be the best. So they agreed. It's presented to the Proton Board and Alberta Health because she needed it. We went, and it's covered by them.
That was my question.
Yes, yeah.
Coverage.
It was covered by them.
It was.
Thank goodness.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was covered. Were our bags covered for the airline? No, of course not.
No, of course not.
And
it's not like you're going to Disney on this one.
No, our bags weren't covered. And Sloane and I, we couldn't even pre-select our seats. We were in like different rows.
Oh, no way.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, it's fine. We were happy, grateful that we could go. So we went, and
How long was this planned stay for then?
This was a month.
A month.
Okay. Yeah. And we were happy that we did the surgery too, because if she had gone down with a residual mass, we would have had to do 20 radiation sessions. But because there was nothing there, they just radiate kind of the area where the primary mass was. We only had to do 12. So less radiation is certainly better.
So it's seemingly a win going in.
Yeah. So that was all good. We were there for a month, and she rang the bell down there, which is cool to kind of signal the end of that.
Saw the bell ring.
Yeah.
Saw the bell ring. And was the song actually Billy Joel, I'm Still Standing, or no? I saw it in your Instagram feed.
Oh, she loves that song though. So
does Brooklyn.
Oh, no way.
We play it in the car all the time. I actually pumped it up on my Instagram today for this.
Is it because of Sing?
Pod?
Because it's from the movie Sing. Like that's where we know it as, is from Sing.
I wish I had as good of a story. It's similar, but Brooklyn one day says, I want to see, can you play Sweet Dreams Are Made of These? And I'm like, how do you know the Eurythmics? What do you know Annie Lennox all of a sudden? You go watching Much Music? What's going on here? And is that still
around? Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Just trying to throw it back for the old people watching or listening. No, so she wanted to hear Sweet Dreams, which is in Trolls.
Yeah.
So I have this 80s playlist, and I'm Still Standing is always right after it. And now it's in the rotation.
There you go.
So I saw it in your feed, and I was like, no way.
Yeah, no, she loves that song.
It's a wicked, and
she loves it.
Fitting.
Her other favorite song, which is so random. Well, one, she's a big Zach Bryan fan right now. But Country Roads, John Denver.
Yeah,
that is her.
That's
I don't know.
Good one.
She's an old
probably
soul.
heard it at the rink, maybe, or something. Or
no.
Is that what they play
She's it is, but she's an old soul.
Old soul.
Yeah. So that brought us to basically kind of now. Like we just got back at the beginning of April.
And and the whole and again, just via watching your feed, and for anybody out there that hasn't followed the real Claire M. On your feed, you had the ringing of the bell, but you also are very aware that this is nowhere signifying that this is the end.
No. So when we got back, she had a series of scans, which I am very pleased to say came back clear. So meaning that she is in complete remission. So Sloane is in complete remission, which, to anyone else, you would think, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. You're done. It's not. We're not done. We still have 6 months left of what's called immunotherapy. Immunotherapy, I really think, is going to be the future of cancer treatment. It's a really cool thing. It's not quite there yet. They're using it kind of in different pieces for maintenance mode for different cancers, and neuroblastoma is one of them. It's basically using the body's own immune system to attack proteins that are on kind of certain genes around neuroblastoma, that it's like, okay, this could be neuroblastoma. Let's kill it.
Get after it.
Yeah. So she's had her first round of immunotherapy. She does that kind of 1 week admitted and then 3 weeks off for the next 6 months.
6 months or something.
Yeah. And it's, we thought it would be the easy part, but it's incredibly painful. And especially
for her.
For her.
It is.
For her.
Well, how do they administer it? I've got no idea.
So it goes through her line, like she still has her central line, goes through there. But the reason why it's painful is because like a neuroblastoma lives on nerve cells. So it's really attacking nerve cells. So it's just wild that the things that they do proactively to make sure she's not in a ton of pain. Like she was on, started on ketamine. She was on ketamine, Hydromorph, Dexmed, gabapentin, Tylenol. I was like, what's Tylenol
You're
doing
like, why
here?
is that? Why are you in this party?
Yeah, I was like, what? I don't really know what
This is for the
Tylenol's
heavy
gonna do.
hitters.
Yeah, exactly. Get on out of here. So like, she was okay, but no wonder she was okay because she was on
drugged
all
off.
these drugs. And like she was surprisingly okay. I was worried because I'd heard a lot of kids have these crazy like nightmares and hallucinations when they're on ketamine. But I think hers was a low enough dose that it wasn't causing that, which is good.
Okay.
So now that we have kind of her cocktail that works for her, we know that that's just going to continue. She still had like aches and pains. Like it's kind of the neuropathy pain is what they're describe it as. So. Yeah.
So you've, throughout this journey, you've become kind of, what word should I use? Skeptical, cynical, maybe on some of the things they're throwing at kids.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
What do you?
Where should we start?
Where do we? Yeah,
Where
like
do we
what?
begin?
What? Yeah, what kind of started you down the road of why are we doing this?
So, and I'm certainly not skeptical of what they're doing because they have to do something. And like the goal is to get rid of cancer for sure. But at what cost? Like that's always what I think is at what cost. Like that's great. You know, we go into our meeting with the oncology team and like they're oncologists. Their goal is to get rid of cancer. But then we're not looking, they know, I'm not saying they're not looking, they know the after effects for all of this stuff on kids. Like
worse on kids.
Oh, right? It's so hard. Like, so I'll start by saying that only 7% of funding for cancer research in Canada goes to pediatrics.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
And I'm being generous saying 7, and it's only because in the last few years there was a one-time grant from the government towards pediatric cancer research.
As Alberta government?
No, it was a federal. It was a federal.
Okay.
Just
curious.
So it was federal.
Okay.
So we'll call it 4 to 7%. And you can hear numbers all over the place. 4 to 7%. I don't care. No matter what it is, it's all bullshit. Yeah. There needs to be more. And
sure.
And I understand, you know, when we're talking about population size, and there's a lot of adults, you know, who are getting cancer, but that still doesn't diminish the fact that these kids have so many years left of their lives. And I'm not knocking. We need to be focused on all the things, right? Sure. Adult cancers as well. There are phenomenal organizations out there doing really good things for adult cancers. And that's important too. I'm not here to say that we should be taking money from that and putting it here.
No, they all need attention.
They all need attention. Yep. And I'm sorry, there are plenty of people in this province, in this country, who have a shit ton of money. And there is enough to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
So that kind of, I guess, started down that path of realizing this, and in fairness, people don't know what they don't know. I didn't know that was a fact until I was in this world. I didn't know that September was Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. You better believe that I know that October is breast cancer awareness, because you
it's
see
everywhere.
that everywhere.
It's everywhere.
November.
Yeah.
And again, not saying those things aren't important, but it's just, why aren't we paying more attention to our kids? And not knowing where funds are going, you know, the Alberta Cancer Foundation, again, they're doing fantastic things for the new Arthur Child Cancer Center, and it's a really fantastic foundation. But I didn't even know until I reached out to them about something in August. So this is still a couple months after Sloane was diagnosed. Yeah. And they were like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Like, we don't do anything with pediatrics. Like, 0 funding that we receive is for pediatrics.
Interesting. I was
like, oh,
yeah. So
shit.
then you're
so who's doing what? Yeah.
What is this? Now
who's
you're
doing
a
this?
CSI.
Yeah. And investigating.
Yeah.
So, it's not just that, it's the, I guess it's the misconception that the general public probably has that, you know, research is research and that's all that matters, but it's not. No. Kids are very different. Kids are not just small adults, and they needed to be treated differently. Because these treatments that they're receiving are causing long-term side effects. Survivors, out of the survivors, it's something like 85 to 90% of survivors will have a long-term side effect from their cancer treatment. From their cancer treatment.
Yeah, I was reading some things like hearing loss.
Oh, that's
like minimal. That's nothing.
Oh, now I don't even care about that. Like, when I first heard that, I was like, oh my goodness, she's going to need hearing aids. Don't even care about that now.
Yeah.
No, one of the first things that we heard when we sat down to review the plan with the oncologist, the 12 to 18 month plan, was just so you know, there's a very high chance, like almost a guarantee, that she's going to be infertile. And in that moment, like
What?
both my husband and I started to cry.
Oh, shit.
Because we're like, we're taking, and not that it matters. Like, let's get rid of the cancer.
Of course.
But we're taking away her ability to make that choice and have kids of her own. So that was the very first one that we heard. And that was hard to hear. And then I feel like the rest just, we're like, okay, now what? Now what?
You're beating dogs.
Yeah. Like, so other ones are, certainly heart issues, pulmonary fibrosis, which is a lung thing. And then this is the kicker, going into high dose chemo. Just so you know, this chemo that she's receiving could cause leukemia. Yeah.
Oh, like, how is that?
Like, what?
Oh, so we're going to get rid of one cancer.
And then another one, maybe 3 to 5 years later, she may get leukemia. Yeah, so secondary cancers is a very real thing. And it is. It is in the adult world too.
Yeah.
But it's just these, the treatments that kids are getting, there has to be better answers.
And there's, correct me if I'm wrong, this is obviously your bag now. Not that you want it to be. There's something like 1,500 kids that are afflicted with cancer in Canada
per year. You're right. Exactly. Okay. If you want to bring it closer to home, 237 in Alberta.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would imagine you have gone balls deep into that community.
No. Yeah, definitely. It's a community that I never wanted to be part of, but I'm so grateful for the group that's out there. And there are a lot of oncology families that are certainly fighting for the same thing that we are.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's not the oncology families. It is our responsibility for sure. But I do feel like it becomes a little bit of white noise, right? If we're the ones that are like, we need to do more.
You got to make some noise, to raise awareness.
Yes.
And I want to go there right now. I just want to ask one more thing. So what did they say after her immunology is done? What is the prognosis, the outlook?
Yeah. So when we first, I guess you could go back to when we had our first meeting to kind of lay out the treatment plan. For high-risk stage 4 neuroblastoma, chance of survival is 65% over 5 years. So 65% in that moment felt good, considering what I was reading online. Like everything online was a lot worse. So 65%, it's like, okay, we can do this. We can run with it.
Yep.
But then this is where I talk about kind of losing a little bit of positivity throughout, because 65% chance of survival is based on her initial diagnosis. So it's not taking into consideration if she were to die from complications based on her treatment. So to give an example of one, a little girl in BC, she just passed away from neuroblastoma, but she was cancer-free. She didn't have cancer. She died from pulmonary fibrosis, so like lung failure. She wasn't able to get a lung transplant because she wasn't in remission for 2 years. So a lot of these kids, neuroblastoma specific, because this is the community that I really follow, whether it's a blessing and a curse all in one, a lot of them are dying from side effects from their treatment. They're also dying from relapse. So the relapse rate is very high.
I was going to ask that one.
Well, it's high. It's 60% chance of relapse. And then once you relapse, your chance of survival drops below 10%.
I'm going to go one step further. What does relapse mean?
Neuroblastoma comes back.
It just comes back.
It comes back.
It's like a
you see it again. Like, so she'll start, once she's done immunotherapy, we'll have regular blood work, regular scans. Like I want to say every 3 months we'll get a scan, and then it could show up somewhere.
Could just be back. Yeah.
And it's back.
And how long does she have to go before she's in the clear? 2 years, you think? Or is or never? She ever?
I want to say it's 5 years. 5 years? Before they're considered cancer-free.
Okay.
So we can say that she's in remission, but I think it's 5 years before you can say that you're cancer-free.
Okay.
So there's a lot of kids that are passing away from relapsed neuroblastoma because once you get into that world, there's no standard protocol. And it's like, well, shit, we threw everything at it. Now what do we do? And then you're kind of starting from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're not sitting there saying, you guys are killing the children.
No.
But what you're saying is, perhaps there's another approach here. Yeah. Can we look at some other things, and obviously increase funding, right?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is we're not going to make a change unless we have more research, and research takes money and funding.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chemo treatments that kids are on right now that they were last approved in the 1970s and the 1980s. So like that's how old some of these treatments are.
Yeah.
Now we've come a long way, right? Like the success rate or survival rate for neuroblastoma has certainly come a long way, and they've introduced things like high dose chemo and stem cell transplants, which are relatively new. To the protocol, and immunotherapy. And, there's a drug that she can take after called DFMO that can help reduce the chance of relapse. So there are things and there's progress being made, but I see how much money, I guess the disparity, and it's not equal, not even close to being equal. And I just think if we had a bit more, how much further could we come? And, I can say this because my father-in-law was going through cancer treatment at the same time that Sloane was. And he would agree that, it's just good times.
Good. Double whammy.
Yeah, double whammy. He was going through a major thing when we were admitted.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So he would agree that, like, yes, there's things that are being done for us, but look at how much life Sloane has left to live. Like, why are we not caring about our future? And they are our future. Like, these kids are our future.
Literally the future, yeah.
They are. Yeah. And I understand that, with 237 kids being diagnosed in Alberta in a year, it's still relatively rare, but it's the number one killing disease of kids. Number one. So why aren't we caring more about that?
Yeah, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Well, I got two number one killers in a row. I don't know if I'm the blessing or the curse, but I got the number one heart and number one children in a row here.
There you go.
If we can make a joke about it, got to do it at some point. Right?
Exactly. We live through humor in our house. We're either making jokes or we're crying.
Yeah, of course. No, you're definitely a strong person. And so, speaking of strong, so you've got a lot of initiatives and fundraising, and you're involved in a lot. Let's touch on a couple of those.
Yeah.
The first one being the Strong Like Sloane.
Yeah. So, Strong Like Sloane came about right when Sloane was diagnosed, and I'll give credit where credit is due to my sister-in-law. She came up with the hashtag. She loves those things. So hashtag Strong Like Sloane.
Big hashtagger.
Right, big hashtagger.
Yep.
So came up with Strong Like Sloane, and we didn't know where it would go or how it would evolve, and I didn't know how much I would want to get into this.
You're putting yourself out there because of your daughter who was sick.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure where it would go, but I've started to really just feel like we need to do more. We need to have more conversations. And again, there's a lot of families who are doing wonderful things and really tangible things in the community. But I still feel like there's a lack in the research space. So that's where my hope and goal for Strong Like Sloane one day will really to take kind of a better look at research and how we can provide better options for kids. And Strong Like Sloane, and what's kind of come out of that is definitely spurred from my love of marketing communications. Yeah, that's my thing. And also distraction, right? Like I think I needed a distraction to not obsess with things that I couldn't control. Yeah. And this is an area that I can control.
That's an area.
It's and I'm passionate about it. And without getting into the details of my career, I've always struggled with not finding something that I'm passionate about, right? And I love my job, love the people I work with. And funny enough, just in the last year, I felt like there was a gap, and everyone agreed, in the surveying geomatics industry. Yeah. There's not enough people getting into this, and we need to promote it more to students because we're running out of surveyors and no one wants to get into this as a career. And I was like, this can be my thing. I can do advocacy for surveying. Like, how fabulous. And this is my thing, and I'm passionate. I can be passionate about this, and this is where I can help.
Throw everything at it.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring all of the, we can work better together. Like, let's bring all the survey companies together and do this big thing. So May 15th last year, I went to the National Surveyors Conference and presented on advocacy for the surveying industry.
And there you go.
And then, 10 days later, was thrown into this world. And I was like, okay. Maybe this is my sign.
This is what I need to advocate for.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of different groups, and then I have to talk about the hockey marathon just because I've got a lot of buds, and Alex Hallett and I are old nemesis, if you want to say. Well, we played against each other, and then we worked together, and so we're buds. And
did you play in the hockey marathon? Ever?
I am beaten to a bloody pulp. Not that that's an excuse, but I've got so many injuries that, so I did volunteer for a couple of years, still not as tough as those guys for pulling it off. And I got, worked with, Leslie Plumley and the whole crew over there, Reese Kozak,
it's a great group.
Amazing. And so notably this year, Taylor Kellum.
Yeah. He wore the name.
He wore her name. That was
It was pretty special. I think how that came about is they had a kickoff call back in November. First call, and I had been asked if I could sit in on the call just to kind of give a little thanks and a wave from a family who's currently in it. It's like, absolutely. And at the time I thought that I was going to be at home, I ended up being in the hospital when they had this call, and it was when Sloane was in high dose chemo. So I set up shop beside her on the bed. She was sleeping beside me, and I had like my video on, so they like knew where I was. And I think that really hit home, that we were kind of in the middle of all of this, and I was joining the call. And I think that it was Taylor that reached out to whoever and said, I want to wear Sloane's name.
Yeah, so he was all in on
He was all in, and fantastic guy, and what a great group of guys and gals, because there was a couple gals.
Yes, you're right. That's right. Yeah, there was, and it's taught. No, I honestly, what they go through with their feet and the shit that they put their bodies through, it's actually ridiculous. Are you familiar with that, AJ, at all?
No. What is?
It's literally they play for like 262
hours. Yeah, 262 hours
straight hockey game.
Yeah. So they have a shift. It'll be like a 4-hour shift, and then they get they play on the ice for 4 hours, and like only have a couple people to switch off and on the ice.
They got to go and they sleep like 4 hours. They have like total their own
like a cop
section to sleep. They sleep at the rink, then they go back, then they play. It's a continuous hockey game, 262 hours, and every year is a Guinness record. And there's a group up in Edmonton that they kind of go back and forth every 4 years, and then there's another one I think in Montreal or something. I could be wrong, but anyway.
Yeah. So, anyways, Guinness Book of World Records this year, and they raised $1.5 million.
Yeah.
For the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation, but specifically oncology. So the goal was around this one was around getting more clinical trials in Alberta at the Children's Hospital.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So
that's good.
It's fantastic. But isn't it? Here's the thing, though. Love it. Love what they do. Isn't it sad that it takes a group of guys and gals playing hockey nonstop for 262 hours to raise $1.5 million? I know that there's people in our city who just have that in their bank accounts that they could just give up.
No, you're right. You are right. And after following, your your social media and you make a lot of comments like, sometimes I annoy myself, or you didn't say it like that, but I don't. Am I saying too much? Should I stop? Do I need to shut up? Because I'm sure it sure feels that way, because you're right. Yeah. Why is it not everywhere?
Yeah, why aren't we talking about it more?
Yeah, why are we not? Is it only because there's only 237? And
I don't know. Or is it hard? I think it's hard to talk about kids who are dying.
I think that's it.
I think it's hard. And I think that people, what I don't know won't hurt me. And ignorance is bliss, right? Those are all things that come to mind for me before Sloane was diagnosed. And I think that it is, pardon my bluntness, but it's really hard to talk about dying kids. And it's sad.
It is.
People don't like it. And I don't think they want to talk about it. And I think, we need to talk about it more to create change. And again, in fairness, people don't know what they don't know. And that's my attitude right now, is people don't know what they don't know. So let's tell them. Yeah,
no, you're right there. And I guess it is coincidental that I did just have the heart, my heart surgeon on. I admittedly, I'm not as passionate as you are, because it's not my child. However, it's still weird and alarming to me that the number one killer of humans on Earth, that people don't talk about it that much.
Yes.
Or people aren't like, I'm in for my yearly ECG.
Yes.
Because hearts murder us every year. So that part to me is odd. So I guess you feel even more so with kids.
Yeah. I know. It's just, it's an interesting an interesting world to be in. And, so that's why I'm doing what I can to spread the word and raise some money, and we'll see where it goes.
You picked up a TV spot. I saw. You picked up a few.
A couple.
Yeah, the CTV.
I am in marketing.
Yeah.
That is strategic.
It is strategic.
Hello. Yeah, September. There's one in September, and it's because I was so mad. I was fired up about September because, again, September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and no one knows it. I did not know it before. Right. And, How did you find out about it? The obvious? Yeah,
because
the obvious.
You're in the cancer world?
Yeah, because I'm in the cancer world. That's really the only way.
I didn't know.
No. And again, I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. Fine, we don't need to talk about this all year long, but give us 1 month. And it drove me nuts that, and I'm not here to be politically correct, the Canadian Cancer Society, I think there was one post on Instagram in September about childhood cancer awareness.
That it should be every day. Right? For that month.
Yeah. And I did have some people in the oncology world reach out as I was angry on Instagram. A lot of people. It wasn't just me. Like, it's not just a Claire thing. There was a lot of people who were mad and up in arms. Yeah. And a couple people were like, well, but you know what? I get it. Like, because the Canadian Cancer Society doesn't really collect money for pediatric cancers. And again, I'm like, but why aren't they? Like, that's maybe the problem, is why aren't they? Yep. But even if they aren't, like, they do have some funding that goes to pediatric cancers through the Canadian Cancer Society. I get it. Their priorities typically breast cancer, prostate, and now colorectal, which is very important as well. But they are collecting money. So who cares? At that point, it's not about donations, it's about awareness. Like, Childhood Cancer Awareness Month is about awareness. Just and
pump it out there.
Just throw out a couple posts, and anyways, that's all they were doing was promoting October for the breast cancer. Yeah, in September.
Of course, it takes precedence.
Yes,
that's a soft spot.
Yes, and I feel like I need a disclaimer here that we have breast cancer in our family, so it's not that I don't think it's important.
Yeah, you're not
it's just, can you give us a month?
Yeah, like, give us something.
Yeah, throw us a bone. So that's when I reached out to several news stations, and I just put it out, cast a wide net, and see what I could get.
And you got a call?
Got a call from CTV, and they were happy to do an interview, which was great. And then had another interview with Global in February for International Childhood Cancer Day, which is February 15th.
And so have you spoken to anybody, like the head of oncology or somebody up? Has anybody ever reached out to you?
No, well, I have good relationships with the oncology team.
I'm sure you would.
Yeah, good relationships with them. And, I'm sure they're just as frustrated as me, but there's only so much that they can do, I think, with their voice. And I think they do really rely on families to help kind of funnel things through. And there's other organizations who are doing things in the research space for pediatric cancer, like Kids Cancer Care at the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation. And I'm sure everybody's frustrated. There's a level of frustration for everybody. I think it's just they've been in it longer. This is still fresh for me, right? So I feel like I'm ready to fight because it's still fresh. But other people, they've been in it for a while, and I'm sure they see the disparity in the space.
Yeah. And so, how's Sloane feeling today?
Good. She's really good. She's doing great. She's been going to school for a couple half days, which is fantastic. She goes in again on May 19th. We check in. I say check in because it feels like we're going to a hotel.
Yeah, it feels like
we're not admitted. We're checking in to the Chateau Children's Hospital on May 19th. So we go the Sunday evening. So she's ready to start on May 20th. Okay. May long weekend.
May long, awesome.
Hey, May long, just bring it around full circle. So May long weekend, we're in
that's 1 year.
That's when she started feeling pain. So we're in for immunotherapy, and then she gets out that Friday for us to kick her out to run 1.2 kilometers in the Calgary Marathon for the kids marathon. So
always raising money and awareness.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Well, I don't want to obviously have to talk a lot about Sloane, but let's talk about Indy.
Yeah.
The
sibling.
Strong sister.
Yes.
Yeah. How's she been throughout this whole process?
She's been really, really good. We told them separately. When she was first diagnosed, we told them separately in case there was questions. And we kind of let her ask questions in her own time and didn't want to overwhelm her with information. But I would say the hardest part for her was probably when we were in for high dose chemo, because she was just only with one parent, right? Every kind of couple of days. And that was tough for her. We decided actually to keep her with us for the entire month when we went to Florida. So my husband went home and I kept both girls with me, and that was fantastic. And they had so much fun together. And I really feel like they were making up for lost time.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we really look at the thing that makes me the most sad or brings me to tears most often is thinking about what if Sloane's not here, and how is that going to impact Indy? And I think that's the hardest thing, right? Like I can't even go there. But that's where both my husband and I think get the most teary-eyed and brings us to tears the most is just when they are in the moment and they're having fun and they're laughing and playing together. Every once in a while, it just hits us.
Yeah.
Like, if?
That's their world.
Yeah.
You see the two little sweethearts playing together.
They're doing great. But she's a fantastic big sister, and she she comes to the hospital to see Sloane. Sometimes she doesn't want to go, and sometimes she doesn't love it, but she'll go. And this most recent time, though, I was talking about her coming to the hospital, and she's like, well, I don't know why I would go, because Dad said she's going to be so drugged up she won't remember I was there. And I was like, well, you can still go. Anyway, she came. And Sloane remembered she was there, so it was fine. So, but yeah, they're both great kids, and they know now well enough that, like, oh, Mom's going to do something for Strong Like Sloane.
Strong Like Sloane. That's her life now.
It is. But you know what? We always say that we're inspiring like Indy. So we
that's good. Inspiring.
Never forget about her. So
of course not.
Yeah.
Well, so where can people go if they want to either research or donate?
For sure.
Support.
Well, research, I will say that there are good resources on the Canadian Cancer Society website. They do cover childhood cancer. There's the Children's Oncology Group, so COG. And then for donations, so be careful where you donate. No, if you want to donate to childhood cancer, you do have to be very specific with where you're going. So there's Childhood Cancer Canada, the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation. But that said, only if you go through certain channels, because if you do donate to the Alberta Children's Hospital, which again is a fantastic place, it goes into kind of a big bucket and then just goes to the greatest priority at the time, where you can direct it. If I can put a plug in. For us, we have a run team in the Calgary Marathon. So the Calgary Marathon is on May 26th. And we have about 183 people on our run team. It's one of the biggest run teams the Calgary Marathon has ever seen. We're all going to be wearing Kids Get Cancer 2 shirts. And we, if you donate there, so if you donate through the Calgary Marathon to Team Strong Like Sloane, all the funds there are going through to the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation, specifically towards pediatric efforts at the new Riddell Center.
There you go.
Yeah, so you have to be careful where you're donating your money. If you want to go to pediatric cancer, you can't just kind of donate to a larger cancer foundation. But yeah, we're close to our goal. Our goal is 80,000 and we're at 73.
Oh yeah, you guys are so close.
Oh, so close. I started
started
when we first started this in December, and I was like, we're doing the marathon. There's this whole backstory to that. It's because the girls were supposed to do the marathon the weekend that Sloane was diagnosed. So that's why it was like, we're doing this. When I started in December, I was like, maybe I'll get 10 of my friends and we'll raise $5,000. So it started with a $5,000 goal, and I've just been increasing it the entire time.
Oh, that's unreal.
Yeah.
Amazing. How many? 183?
183 people. Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
So it'll be a good crowd, and we'll.
Is it a full marathon? Like 21 or
21.1 is a half. So
I'm
doing a half. A full is 42.2. 42.2. Everyone is doing all sorts of things. We have people who are doing a 5-kilometer run and walk. We have people who are doing the 10. There's 25 kids doing the 1.2 kilometer.
There is?
Yeah, 25 kids. So, it'd be good.
May
26th. May 26th.
Yeah, it is. May 26th. That's the day she was,
Yeah, if we need, if anyone wants to cheerlead, we have signs and everything. So you can get a hold of me if you want to be a cheerleader on the sidelines.
Well, I might have to get Brooklyn out there, I think, on the 26th. I think we better be available.
Yeah.
I should probably put her out there.
There aren't any more spaces in the kids run.
No.
But you should come out and
No, we'll just cheer.
Cheer us on.
Yeah.
I'll get you a sign.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you consider doing a live on location.
Live on location at the Calgary Marathon. There you go.
Here we are, and we got another jam from Perry Como.
Right. We're doing it every year. This is going to be an annual thing.
It's going to be an annual. I love it.
We're going to do that every year.
Yeah.
I have another thing, Heartbeats for Hope, that I'm going to do every year.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
One. What's the Heartbeat for Hope?
I did this thing around February 15th, which was International Childhood Cancer Day, and got. I think we had 9 fitness studios in Calgary involved in running charity.
Fit 45 or a bunch of
F45.
F45.
There was a bunch of F45,
bunch of
Junction, Rhythm Ride, like lots of great studios. That
also Heart Month.
There you go. Yes.
Right? Heart Health Month.
Yes.
Heart Awareness.
Yes. So, but I stole Heartbeats for Hope for childhood cancer. Hey, that's okay.
Free market.
Yeah,
Free enterprise.
exactly. Yes. Yes, I do remember that for February being Heart. Is it Heart Health Month?
It's Heart Health Month, February. But yeah, again, most people don't know because I'm going to do something. I better not plug it all right now.
Plug it.
I don't. It's not ready.
Okay.
So I will be doing something in February.
Let me know how I can help. That's the thing I love. I will say that nonprofit seems to be much more competitive than I ever thought it was. But at the same time, there are a lot of really great people who are willing to help and put their hand up because I do believe there is enough to go around for all of us. I fully believe that we need to help each other and promote each other because there's enough to go around.
No, there certainly is, especially right here in Alberta, right?
Yep, definitely. Yeah.
Well, you're an absolute treat. I love you sharing the story with us, and you guys are a strong family, strong like Sloane.
Thank you. Right? I really appreciate you having me on. I know it's a different topic than what you're used to, but
Well, there wasn't as many tears as I thought, which I guess is right. It's like you say, you're in it, so you have to kind of, if you can't laugh a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you going to, you got to find the light in the dark. And that's what we're trying to do as much as we can. There's no point just being upset every day. So we're turning pain into purpose.
Yeah. Oh, that's well said. Yeah. I think we should hook up Sloane and Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And Indy.
I think
maybe we'll get them in here.
Yeah. Get them in. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Let's do a kids podcast.
Well, I'm going to bring,
see what they say.
See.
Okay.
Yeah, I got some stuff up sleeve there too.
Don't give away secrets.
All kinds of secrets. Okay. Well, thanks so much again, Claire.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks, Kevin.
Till next time.
Yeah.